Superman and Batman, they both have their own animated series, but Wonder Woman was the one character in the animated version of DC's Trinity of Heroes who actually didn't get her own cartoon. So if she had one, what would you have liked to see?
I just like to see it. That's the truth. Like, I'd like a video game for her. I would love an animated series. I mean, she really does not get treated equally. I mean, look how many incarnations we've had of Batman and Superman for that matter. And this is, 2017, we're getting our first Wonder Woman movie. I mean, I think we have a lot of lost time to make up for. I didn't grow up with it, right? So I haven't been waiting decades for a Wonder Woman film like the fans have. I want the fans to be happy. I know what it's like to write a fan letter. I know what it's like to want an autograph. I would love if there were an animated series, for her to have a Hippolyta in there, because I love the mother-daughter relationship, and to explore that and the relationship with the sisters and Themyscira. I just would love her story to be told in other platforms. So however that gets done, I'm not going to be a piggy about it, no pun intended. She's overdue. We've got some real serious time to make up for.
So I'm gonna ask a question, and if you guys have the answer to it, you can stop the video and answer it down in the comments. Out of all the great, unique and interesting heroes that DC has given us, we all know who the main three are. And they're not just the main trinity of heroes in DC, but they're also arguably the best three heroes in the world. And the reason some of us could make this argument is because of the impact they pretty much have on most of us. And some of us were able to recognize the impact of these heroes through television. For Superman, which was the first heroes that a lot of us recognize, it was through the Richard Donner movies, the 90s animated series, and the best and biggest one in my opinion to convey the impact of the character is Smallville. For Batman, we all instantly recognize how compelling his character was through the Burton movies, the many live action movies and series, but the very obvious and biggest one was the Batman animated series from the 90s made by Bruce Timm. There are obviously many more adaptations for these two characters, but I feel like Smallville and Batman the Animated Series, in my opinion, and I think to many other people, are what strongly send the message on why these two characters are truly iconic. They are the media that gave these two characters a really strong voice and presence in the public. Which brings me to my question. Apart from the three movies that really showed us who this character really is, where is Wonder Woman's significance on the screen? Where is the show that conveys the importance of her character? What other form of media have truly showed her cultural significance on the world and her impact? Where is the series that brings her and her lore to full glory? So that's what I want to talk about today, and yes, as you can tell from the title and thumbnail, I 100% want it to be an animated series, because not only does it bring eyes to the animated department, but I feel like most, if not all, of the fantastical and mythological elements of Wonder Woman could be explored to the fullest on animation. But before I talk about my rough ideas for Wonder Woman animated series, her origin, her impact to society, and how her stories got to me personally, I want to first of all talk a little bit about her character and her stance in the DC universe, most especially the concept of why she's one of the core members of the DC Trinity.
So instantly for me, I'm looking at, you've got Batman, and Batman fights crime, and Superman's sci-fi and social realism in the early days. Wonder Woman is about sex and alternative sexuality,
What did he say?
Now, as many of us know, Wonder Woman is part of the main trinity that consists of Batman and Superman. And to the world, because of the sense of diversity in it, this is seen to most people as why they are known as the three most popular superheroes in the world. However, in the context of the DC universe, this has a much added and cooler meaning to it. The DC Universe Online game broke this down really well, but essentially the three of them represents the three biggest aspects of their universe. For the aspects of realism, and with grounded and gritty storytelling, but with the characters that are skilled or tech-based but feel mostly human, you have Batman that represents this aspect. This is where characters like Green Arrow, Black Canary, and Deathstroke falls in. For the sci-fi aspects and concepts of aliens, genetic morphing, and other individuals or species outside of Earth, we have Superman that represents this. This is where we have characters like Martian Manhunter, the Green Lanterns, and Darkseid. And for the aspect of the underworld, the magical and mythological side of DC, the side where we have characters like John Constantine, Zatanna, Swamp Thing, and the Justice League Dark, this is where we have Wonder Woman for representation. And this completes the Trinity concept of DC. Sometimes this isn't always the case, especially with Diana, because she doesn't always have stories that are deep in the underworld and magical aspects. However, some of the stories that have done it in DC, the stories that choose to play with the concept of Wonder Woman being in the mythological and magical aspects of their universe, have done it really well. The three main ones for me are George Perez's run, which started the concept of her as the character that represents the underworld of DC, Brian Azzarello's run, which focused on reinventing the mythological aspect of the character, and my personal favorite one, James Tyrion Justice League Dark run, which not only confirmed that she is the character of the underworld, but explored the different and interesting ways on why she is that character, tying her origins to Hecate and the magic realm without rebooting her character, putting her as a core member and once leader of the Justice League Dark, and putting her in interesting magical situations that she's never been in before. It's a really cool, fun, but epic book that explores Diana's place in the magic world and her chemistry and dynamics with the characters of the Justice League Dark. However, while it is really cool, it's also the same reason why I think we haven't gotten much Wonder Woman content in the past years. DC at the time were too cautious to bring in the concepts of Wonder Woman and her world to the big screen, or in any screen in general. Aside from the fact that she has many good but very confusing origin stories, the whole magical and underworld aspects of DC were never really touched upon, mainly due to the fact of how dark and grim they could get sometimes. Like, do some of you guys know that Morpheus the Dream of the Endless was set to make an appearance in one of Batman the Animated Series episodes, but unfortunately it sadly got cancelled. DC just didn't want to bring in any of the characters of that aspect to the screen at the time. And I think unfortunately this also harmed Diana as well, considering the fact that she falls into this aspect of DC, coupled with the fact that she's also a female character and they thought she wouldn't generate viewings from general audiences. In my opinion, I think looking at it from this perspective can give an understanding on why they never tried anything with the character. And every time they tried to, they always ended up cancelling the project. But this excuse, in my opinion, is no longer valid anymore, given the incredible success of the first Wonder Woman movie and how it made everyone love and pay attention to the character, and also how the underworld of DC has been getting more and more praises and attention by the day. There should be developing projects for the character now more than ever before. Now, don't get me wrong, DC is currently trying a little bit to do interesting things with the character. And this shows with the announcement of a Wonder Woman video game, which will be developed by Monolith Productions and has every hardcore fan, including me, extremely hyped for it. I'm truly happy and excited that DC is making efforts to give us a Wonder Woman game, one that hopefully pulls elements from George Perez and Brian Azzarello's epic stories, but still finds a way to make it really fresh and interesting. And I hope that with the success of the game, it could be a sign of many more different and interesting projects to come. But in my opinion, I don't think there can be another form of media that does the lore and character of Wonder Woman justice than an animated series. Because not only can it adapt the exciting aspects of the comic, but it also brings in the most opportunity to tell new stories, show Diana's growth as a character from start to finish, and also be the ultimate passion project, the ultimate love letter to the character. So while I'm patiently waiting for it to eventually get announced, instead of a Plastic Man animated series, I decided to use this opportunity to talk about my rough ideas on how I want the show to be. And this includes her origin, her allies, her villains, and her struggles in the show. Now, like I said earlier, Wonder Woman's stories are amazing, but it comes with a whole horde of many different origins for her character. Basically, she doesn't have a definitive origin like Superman and Batman. And sometimes I think it's cool that she doesn't have a definitive origin because it really drives home that she truly is a mythological character. If you try to study some of the mythological characters from the Greek world like Medusa and Hecate, you come to realize that they have many origins and stories depending on who is telling you them. And sometimes I like that Diana fits into that category because she is also a mythological character. However, this really becomes a problem when bringing it on the screen. Because of the many origins that she has, it becomes really hard to pick one as a definitive version. So I'm going to try to give her one right now. And I'm going to do this by trying to combine some of the origin stories that she's had in the past into one definitive version. So basically, I'm going to try to grant Morrison some of Wonder Woman's origin stories. And I would also love to know how you guys feel about some of them in the comments. We'll start with George Perez's way of introducing Mount Olympus and the Greek gods, and how they created the Amazons and made them their female warriors with Hippolyta as their queen. Then we will have the Hippolyta and Heracles sequence, where his actions led to the war between him and his people and Hippolyta and the Amazons, which then makes her understand that men are cruel and should never be given a second chance, especially when coming to Themyscira. Then I transition to Jill Thompson's origin and how Diana was born, where everyone, including the Amazons, sang her to life with the help of clay. This is also where I take James Tyrion's idea of what Hecate did to Diana. So while everyone was singing Diana to life, Hecate was instead placing a curse on Diana to be her secret weapon in the future when she grows up. Then we go back to Jill Thompson's origin story and how Diana grows up, starting off arrogant, then meeting a blonde girl of Themyscira named Aletheia, forming a friendship with her, and then Diana's naive actions that led to not just the death of Aletheia, but the death of some of the women in Paradise Island. They vote to banish Diana like they did in the books. But instead of the banishment to happen, this is where I make a huge change. Hippolyta, on not wanting to lose her only daughter, makes a deal with Hera to make everyone on Themyscira, including Diana, forget what happened. It's a secret that is only known between Hippolyta and Hera, because Hippolyta couldn't bear the thought of letting her only daughter leave and be banished from Themyscira, because anyone who leaves the island forgets where it is, and Hippolyta just couldn't take it. She couldn't bear the fact of letting her daughter leave the island and forgetting about the island altogether. So she made a deal with Hera to make everyone forget and cover it all up. The entire concept of forgetting where Themyscira is located once you leave is an inspiration from Greg Rucka's Wonder Woman's origin. And then we transition to Grant Morrison's origin, where Diana has grown up a little bit and she meets a blonde man named Steve Trevor. He arrives on Themyscira half dead like he usually does, and Diana knows that if she takes him to her mother, they will execute him immediately. So she instead takes the decision into her own hands and decides that the only way to save him will be if she left the island herself. Diana obviously knows the consequences of leaving the island, but in order to save Steve's life, who is a stranger to her at the time, she feels she has no other option and she does it. This action doesn't just show how heroic Diana is, but it's also a perfect opportunity to begin her life and adventure on Man's World. We still continue on Morrison's origin on how she brought Steve to the hospital, how she left in anger because of how the humans treated her, how she then met Etta Candy and they both become friends, and how they go back to see Steve in the hospital, and this is where they form their trio and have their heroic adventures in Gateway City. All this happens in the first season of the show. So this is my own personal origin for Wonder Woman, and I really hope it was easy to follow and understand. As you can see, I take huge inspirations from mainly Jill Thompson's run because I consider it to be the best one, but I cut the ending and taking moments from other writers' origin to form one for the series. And this doesn't mean that this show won't have any action and be engaging. Diana's escape on Themyscira won't be so easy. It will be like a chase sequence between her and the warriors of Themyscira. And as Diana escapes and arrives on Man's World, Ares sees the opportunity to send in Decay and his other subordinates to try and cause chaos on Man's World. And also, this will be the opportunity to introduce Veronica Cale very early in season 1 to make more challenges for Diana and her trio. This is where we also create Cassie Sandsmark as a clone of Diana that was made in the labs by Veronica to destroy Diana. But instead, she becomes Diana's partner and increase the roster of friends that Diana can trust. For the first season, we'll have to take it slow. We can't just introduce the big ideas and concepts right off the gates. Basically, we can't just introduce the cool mythological aspect of our character immediately. We have to first of all establish characters, build foundations, and make clear origins for both the heroes and the villains in the beginning before moving on to other wild and big concepts. But we can try and tease and slowly build up to it. An example of this is having sequences of Diana having nightmares of Themyscira in danger, and her constantly feeling guilty for abandoning her sisters to come to Man's World. and we'll still have Ares causing trouble all throughout the first season until Diana finally takes him down. Now, this is off the pitch, but some people believe that part of the reason why Diana isn't that interesting is because she doesn't have a good amount of villains to go against her like Batman or Superman. And to that, I have this to say.
You are dead wrong.
Not many people know this, but Diana has a lot of deadly villains. And while I'm not trying to be here all day, I'm gonna try my best to mention a few of them without getting too carried away. We have the ones we all know of, which are Ares, Maxwell Lord, Dr. Poison, and Veronica Kill. But we also have many unique ones like Circe, Hecate, Hera, the Furies of Hecate, Medusa, the Children of Ares, the Banished Warriors of Hippolyta, the Dragon the Cool, Hades, and so many more. Diana has so many unique villains. Sometimes even her mother can also be considered a very deadly and scary villain. But I'll be doing disservice to her lore and character if I didn't mention her number one most deadly villain, Cheetah. I know some of you guys are raising your eyebrows because I said Cheetah, but let me explain. What makes Barbara Manova aka Cheetah so compelling is the amount of hate and malice she carries for Diana, and how she absolutely wants nothing else but to destroy everything close and dear to her. The best similarity I can use to describe this is how Sasuke hated Itachi for what he had done to their clan, and how that hate was the singular drive to keep him going, to make him believe that he can actually kill Itachi. And when he did it, it got worse when he realized that Itachi was innocent from the start. The dangerous hatred that Sasuke had in Naruto is very similar to the hate that Barbara has for Diana. But while Sasuke's hate is amplified because of his Sharingan and heritage, Barbara's hate is amplified because of her family background and wild progressive animal instincts. And the more animal she becomes, the more she loses her humanity and memories of what her human life was like for her. The only thing she remembers strongly is the hate she has for Diana, and how it will give her much joy when Diana is in so much pain. There's more I want to say about Cheetah, but I'll end it here by recommending a video from a channel called Comic Origins, and how he explores just how sad Cheetah as a character really is. But the overall point is Wonder Woman has many interesting villains, and I wonder as the series goes on, we see more and more scary villains from her rogues gallery. Like I said, as season 1 of my series begin, I'll first want the villains to start slow with characters like Veronica Kill, Ares, and the other challenges they bring for Diana and her friends, with Barbara's origin and transformation in the background. Then after Diana defeats Ares, she starts having nightmares of her mother and Themyscira being in danger, and is a sign that she needs to go back home. But let's not forget that she also doesn't remember where Paradise Island is. And my way of making Diana remember is for her to pay the ultimate sacrifice by making everyone she's ever known on man's world forget about her. In order for Diana to save her sisters and find Themyscira, she has to cut her ties with the love she has for Steve, the friendship she has with Etta, and the partnership she has with Cassie. And while the three of them still remember each other, they can't remember the one character that brought them all together. My season 1 will start with Diana meeting a lot of people and befriending a lot of people, but will end up all alone in the end. And then we get to season 2, which will focus on the Greek mythology aspect of her character and how some of the gods and other characters have a heavy impact on her life in the past, in secret, and in present. Is here secrets, manipulations, betrayals, and challenges take full effect. In season 2, we don't need to go steady like we did in season 1. Here we bring out all the interesting concepts that we've been having on Greek mythology, and we choose to expand the story as much as we can. If there are villains that need reinventing, we reinvent them. If there are ones that haven't gotten enough time to shine, we give them their time to shine. And if there are new villains or characters that we can introduce to have a heavy impact on Diana's life and journey, then we introduce them. The premise of the season will be when Diana finally arrives at Themyscira after making everyone forget about her. She sees all her sisters turn to stone, and the only way to know who did it and free her sisters is to pass the challenges of the gods. This is where we see ultimate trials for Diana and how she chooses to overcome them. And after winning every challenge, she realizes that it was Medusa and Hera that put her sisters in their current state, and the only way to free them is to battle Medusa to the death. And after all that is over, Diana will still face trials in the hands of the Amazons for choosing to abandon them in season 1 for the sake of man's world. I'll make it in the show that every action that Diana makes seems to has a reaction. Every decision she makes in the series must have a consequence. Saving the Amazons doesn't mean that she wouldn't go through the trial and consequences for choosing to abandon them in the first place. And while she is going through this trial of the Amazons and having her challenges from the gods, Hera and Derino use the opportunity to make another clone of her, which would be Donna Troy. This is how I personally would separate Donna from Cassie, as Cassie is a clone from Diana from Man's World made by Veronica Cale. Donna is a clone from Diana from the Underworld made by Hera and Derino. And unlike Cassie, who was easygoing and happy to be a hero and a partner with Diana in the first season, Donna in the second season will be a war machine. And she's going to cause Diana a little bit of trouble before she finally changes. Before she finally decides to be on Diana's side. They will both be representing both sides of Diana, but having very different personalities from each other. I don't want to go into too much details, but if season 2 is where Diana faces most of her task alone and becomes victorious, then season 3 is where all her friends and partners from both worlds meet each other. This is where we see characters from Man's World and characters from Themyscira all come together. And I'll have Hera as the main villain for season 3. This is also where Hippolyta dies and Diana becomes the queen of the Amazons, with all the secrets between Hippolyta and Hera coming out. And then in season 4, we see Diana understand the struggles of what it takes to be queen of the Amazons and go on a whole war against Hades, the king of the underworld. And then in season 5, if the show exists in the larger span of the DC universe, this is where we see Diana's relationship with other heroes like the Justice League and the Justice League Dark. This is where we can see other characters of the DC universe and Diana's dynamic and chemistry with all of them. The ending of season 4 or beginning of season 5 is where she convinces her people to open up again to Man's World, and she becomes the anchor between Man's World and Themyscira. So while she's queen of the Amazons, she's also an ambassador and voice of Themyscira on Earth. So overall, in a nutshell, if this show were to happen and we were to see a whole journey on Diana, we will see her go from a princess to a naive fish out of water hero, to a warrior of the gods, then to being queen of Themyscira, then leader of the supernatural, and then an ambassador and an anchor to Man's World. Now all these that I just mentioned are just rough ideas that I have for Wonder Woman and her show, but this is proof that her show can really work and be engaging. There is so much more that can be done with her character. And there are more ideas from my concept that I wanted to get into more details in, but don't have the time to do so here. The sweet but difficult love story between Diana and Steve, and how Steve and Aletheia could somehow have a connection and be kindred spirits that have a significant impact on Diana's life. The characters and Amazons that Diana will be close with when she finally returns in season 2. How Donna, Cassie and Yara could become best of friends and maybe even get a spin-off series of their own that see them go on their own adventures together. How Etta Candy grew throughout the whole series. How loving but conflicting the mother-daughter relationship is between Diana and Hippolyta. The impact and stronghold of the Greek gods on Diana's life and journey, like the guidance of Athena and the evil manipulations of Hera, because of Hecate on not just Diana but Circe as well. The tragedy of the battles with the Furies of Hecateia, the vengeance of Ares' children, the war of Hades to Themyscira, Diana's battle with Draco the dragon, the battle against the warriors of Hippolyta, the deadly hatred between Diana and Cheetah, but also how sometimes they could work together for a common goal. There's so much to do and explore with the character of Wonder Woman. There's just so much that could be done if a Wonder Woman show gets a green light. And the fact that there haven't been any effort or sign to get the series going while Batman and Superman are still getting newer projects really baffles me. Wonder Woman is part of the Trinity and I need DC to start giving her the same treatment as they do with the other two. Batman most especially. And yes, I fully understand that it could go all wrong. With the recent ways media is currently writing female characters in fiction, this show getting a green light could end up being a disaster because of the pleasing of a certain group of people that probably won't even watch the show. I completely understand that this show could take a huge left turn if done poorly, but in the hands of the right people, in the hands of writers, showrunners and creators that have love and passion for the character and what she means to them, in the hands of people that are ready to make this show a must-watch to general audiences by telling compelling stories around the character, then this series will be outstanding. I want to see them use every aspect that have to do with the lore of Wonder Woman. I want to see them use this opportunity to try and bring every female actress that almost had a chance to play Wonder Woman and give them a shot in the series. I want to see them combine every story and lesson that every writer tried to bring to the character, from the definitive foundations of George Perez's run all the way to the emotional conclusion done by Gail Simon, Greg Rucka, and Daniel Warren Johnson's run. I want to see this show blossom into something beautiful and exceptional. I want it to be gorgeous to look at, with the similar art style and animation techniques of either Legend of Korra, Castlevania, or Superman Batman Apocalypse. We will be getting some of the finest projects that DC has ever made. I want the show to explore every fantasy element of Wonder Woman to its absolute fullest glory. I want the show to stand out from other animated shows that have come before. This show, if given a green light, cannot look bland and uninteresting and end up with basic surface level writing on how strong of a character Diana is. I want this show to take risk. I want it to put its characters in difficult situations and make them overcome these situations. I want to see Diana at her absolute lowest. I want her to show emotions of loss, love, guilt, pain, and victory. I want to see it all with this show, similar to how we did on Superman with Smallville and on Batman on the 90s animated series. And with a new Batman and Superman animated series currently being developed, I want Wonder Woman to have a share at that too. Now, I've tried a little bit to explain why I want a Wonder Woman series and why I think there is no better time than now to make one, but I want to try and explain what I think her stories and her overall character actually means. So, like it or not, Wonder Woman is a bondage character. From the moment she was created by H.G. Peters and William Moulton Marston, she's been a character that is constantly cuffed, chained, and on trial. But what makes her compelling to me, and I think to many other fans of Wonder Woman, is the reason for the bondage and how she breaks out of it. The bondage aspect of Wonder Woman, while being the biggest part of her character, is just the superficial aspect to it. Basically, it's always the kickstarter and setup for her character and her stories. What makes her and the bondage great is that she intentionally puts herself in that position, knowing fully well of the consequences that comes with it. Knowing fully well of the pain, betrayal, disappointment, loss, and rejection that she will eventually feel. Knowing fully well that it might possibly drive a wedge between her and her family. But despite all this, she still does it in hopes of inspiring other people who are in the same position to break free as well. To see a character that intentionally chooses to leave her world of paradise, where she's eventually meant to be queen, and leave it all behind for the sole reason of coming to defend and protect a world that she doesn't know of. Knowing fully well that she will be shunned and banished by her sisters for doing so, and also end up forgetting where her home truly is. And then seeing her go through a really difficult journey on Earth the moment she arrives, but still end up motivating people and driving people forward is just amazing to me. It makes you fully understand why she really has her place among some of the greatest heroes in the DC universe. Why she is actually part of the biggest characters in not just the DC Trinity, but also why she is the greatest female superhero of all time. Like her other two main counterparts, she is also a symbol of great representation. If Batman is meant to be a symbol of justice and a character that constantly fights the concept of death, and Superman is meant to be a symbol of hope and a character that constantly fights the concept of impossibility, Wonder Woman is a symbol of progress and a character that constantly fights the concept of captivity. A character that tries to put herself in the same level and positions as her enemy so she can understand what got them there. A character that will take the pains and frustration of the people she's trying to understand and reach out to. A character that moves and inspires people to take their first steps out of their captivity. That makes us understand no matter how hard the road and the journey gets, that we should understand that there is always a light at the end of the tunnel. A character that is willing to work with the same people that she once deemed as enemies for the singular purpose of progression. A character that will stop at nothing to set people free regardless of what or who is in her way, even if it ends up being people she once called her own blood and family. She's a compelling character of movement and freedom through the struggles and hardship. She's a breaking free defined character. And to me, the inspirational impact of this that can reach out to everybody should not be forgotten or put on the sidelines, especially when the lessons and drive of her character is so relevant right now in the world. While her character was mainly made for the female demographic when she was originally created, she's evolved past that. She doesn't just inspire the female individuals, but everyone around the world. That's why writers of both gender are telling more compelling stories about her, and that's why I'm also asking for this series. The first live-action Wonder Woman movie is a perfect example of this. Not only was it the first DCEU movie that was universally loved by everyone, but it made people see a glimpse of the cultural significance and power that this character has on the comic book and superhero world. The impact of one of the most iconic characters in comic book history, a huge part of DC's Trinity, and arguably the best female superhero in the world, should never be ignored or sidelined. She should never be allowed to settle for so little, while her main other counterparts keep having dozens upon dozens of adaptations of the impact that they have. I said this earlier and in one of my previous videos, but as I'm talking to you right now, we're currently getting a new Batman animated series that will be done by Bruce Timm and a new Superman animated series that will be done by Jake Wyatt. So here I am hoping that there is one already in discussion at the high tables of Warner Brothers animation department. So yeah, I really like the character of Wonder Woman, and I want her stories to blossom in full glory in an animated series. I want it to capture everything that the character represents and stands for, and I hope the Princess of Themyscira doesn't get denied.